I'm Radhika Balam. I am the Director of Revenue Operations at Fundbox, and I have been in the sales and service-focused CRM forever, my entire career. But what I do at Fundbox is much more than that, which is why I enjoy it the most. We support all our operations teams to make sure they're successful in their roles with the needed tech stack, data in and out, analytics, marketing automation, and everything. And what do we do at Fundbox? What are we as an organization? As Fundbox is into small business lending. We are a fintech, Series D, small business lending fintech startup, and we revolutionized the entire lending business with the way we assess our customers using machine learning algorithms and approve them for credit within minutes and hours. And we are embedded, we call ourselves an embedded working capital platform. What that means is we are deeply embedded into the tools and the platforms the small businesses use in their day-to-day operations, like Intuit, QuickBooks, Stripe, Visa, and so many other tech platforms like that. It's like any other business. As we grew and age, and as a business grow, right? So when we grow as a business, our needs grow, and we want to be as efficient and successful as possible. However, with the patchy architecture that was put in place long ago for all good reasons, again, no blaming about why it was in a certain way, we were running into reliability challenges, we were running into data delays, we were running into poor operations efficiencies, which has put us in a spot where we are just in a status quo mode and we are not innovating. Which is what we absolutely thought it's very important for us to automate and innovate and go beyond and break the barriers that are limiting us to be successful. And with all the challenges I was just talking about, we were in the status quo because we were not able to bring in the data as fast as possible and automate the triggers for operations teams to leverage and get in front of the customers at the right time, which has slowed our operations quite a bit. Anytime status quo is really bad. When I say, we all like being in status quo and we all like things going smooth. However, there's always an opportunity for us to improve and get better and efficient and effective. With the current macroeconomic situations and the type of the growing business we are always in the situation of, okay, how do we make ourselves better? How do we make sure we get in front of our customers? How do we innovate, and how do we identify their needs proactively and get in front of them? The immediate expectation is for us to be able to bring in volumes of data over with as minimal hiccups as possible, and avoid those errors and situations where you're really slowing things down and unable to bring the data in. So that bringing in volume of data as volumes of rows gets updated in the core data layer. That was the immediate need. And the long term is, okay, once we have the data in, how do we make sure we are not just relying on data transfer, right? So not just copying the data over, but leverage platform events and event-based architecture to trigger actions based on the actions taken by the customer in the product layer to the operations team so they can act upon it. For me, UI is the key, right? So experience when my team is working on the tool, and the flexibility it gives with error handling and lookup tables and so many other features we use at Fundbox is amazing, right? So especially with the UI, you're not making it so much of a techie tool, right? So pure developer oriented, but it's more like, okay, anybody who is familiar with the technologies and kind of the usage of the tools can get on it, learn it, and do it. So UI and UX, what Workato provides, it's how self-intuitive it is super amazing to me. One important one I can talk about is fraud, right? So whenever we're onboarding customers and approving them from credit, there's algorithms that we use to see if there's any details in there or any observations or patterns we need to be observing for some fraudulent customers or risk that's going to happen to our portfolio. In those situations, when those identifications are made in the product layer, we would like our fraud team to be alerted as soon as possible so they are able to respond to it, react upon it, and get in front of the customer, review them, and make sure if it was a false alarm, we help them through the flow, and if it's not, then how do we make sure we mitigate that risk, right? So that was a very important use case which we are able to solve through our Workato event-based architecture. Prior to we having all this in place, Our Zendesk system, which is our support CRM, when they're talking to a customer, when the customer calls them, all they have is the phone number of the customer based on the incoming call. They did not have any customer data available in Zendesk to know who that customer is based on that phone number match. They used to take that phone number, plug it into a different system to know who the customer is before they could pick the call. Think about the impact they could make if the customer data is readily available and Zendesk is able to surface that based on the incoming call. And it's so human-y conversation they can have with the customer. Oh, I see you're calling from Atlanta. I see this is your name. How's the weather over there? How are you doing? How's the business been? So knowing their industry and having much more informed conversation, it just makes such a tremendous impact on the customer and the experience we are able to provide to the customer. Our ability to test initiatives in the market before we identify something is so long-term and get it into place in the product layer, we really want to measure the success of it, right? So we want to try something small and test a POC and see, okay, it's great, it's successful, now it's ready to be rolled out, right? So for that situation, we have retention initiative we have put in place, leveraging the Salesforce Workato integrations in place, and it has been so successful. It still is running on the same infrastructure, and it's definitely a long term, which is going to be put into the product layer sooner rather than later. But it has driven millions of revenue for Fundbox. It's amazing, right? So everybody wants to automate, everybody wants to remove the manual steps, so they're going to invest their resources and time in the right places. And we do have other departments who are also looking up for it, so which is what I was just talking about, marketing team. Our marketing team, performance marketing, which is growth marketing team, wants to understand their ROAS, which is like return on ad spend. We really want to make sure we understand the pattern of a customer before they convert to us. What are the different avenues they're taking to know about Fundbox before they take that final plunge as our customer. So it's very important for growth marketing to understand that whole picture, right? So that user journey. And that is where Workato has played a big role in pushing those events, conversion events, back to some external platforms, which are able to give us that full picture of where the customer first see us, and how did that funnel go through the user journey has transpired before they have become a customer for us. The one thing I would say is automation is the thing, right? So if you're not automating your processes, you're keeping yourselves behind the game, right? So to an extent, it will work. Beyond that, it is not going to, right? So you absolutely be in a situation to do more with less, with the limited resources and everything. So automation is the key. And think about different opportunities you would have where you automate the certain steps of your flow, how you can invest the time of your resources into something better, something different.